Hello there, this is Dana Arcuri, author, speaker, survivor, and certified trauma recovery coach from danaarcuri.com. Thank you so much for joining me today. We are going to talk about something that a viewer had asked me to create a new video. And so she wanted me to talk about toxic shame and what it is. And so we are going to cover the topic of toxic shame and toxic people who dump it on you. And this is something that goes hand in hand with abuse and trauma. This is something that is really necessary to educate ourselves about, to gain more insight, to learn the signs of toxic shame. Who are the people who dump the toxic shame on us? And how do we heal from it? So there's a lot to cover today, but before we take a deep dive into the psychology of toxic shame, I wanted to share that I have an announcement to make, very exciting announcement. So I am offering from now through October 29th, this big mega discount on my certified trauma recovery coach program. And so it is specifically for the 1 month package, which is 4 weeks of one-on-one private coaching sessions that are 1 hour each with me via Zoom, where you can unpack your trauma, be heard, be seen, and receive safe space. So, basically this isn't therapy. A certified trauma recovery coach works directly with abuse and trauma survivors. We give them safe space. We give them voice and choice because they do deserve to be empowered and learn helpful strategies to work through, process, recover, and heal traumatic events. So if you'd like to learn more, please visit danaarcuri.com. Check out my newest blog post on it. So now let's jump right into the toxic shame discussion. So for start, we need to discover and define what is toxic shame. I'm going to put on my glasses. I have notes, people. I have notes because there is a lot of statistics. There's a lot of education online about it, which I'm really thankful for. And this is actually a subject that we did cover when I was in school for the International Association of Trauma Recovery Coaching. This is a hot topic that so many people who are abuse survivors, especially of sibling abuse, narcissistic abuse, parental abuse, spousal abuse, and on, sexual assaults. And, there's so many different forms of trauma. But this is something that is dear to my heart because the one way to heal is to first educate ourselves. And that is why I create books and videos in effort to help you heal your trauma. So, toxic shame is a serious concern for those who have survived any type of abusive, dysfunctional, and destructive relationships, including narcissistic abuse. This type of shame goes far beyond thinking, I made a mistake or I regret doing something. So toxic shame is usually dumped onto innocent people by their toxic family, spouse, intimate partner, and it could be the narcissist. It could be the flying monkeys. When we look at, who are the people who are dumping toxic shame on us, we could say, first of all, that it's very subtle and it can be very sneaky in how they do so. Next, we can ask, well, who are they? What types of people do this? So it could be your mother, your father, your brother, your sister. It could be any of your relatives. It could be your friends, intimate partner, spouse, or your ex-boyfriend, girlfriend, ex-spouse, etc., etc. It could be a coworker. It could be a sexual predator. And as we said, it could be a narcissist and or a sociopath. So there are so many different variables that go into this. Technically, it could be anyone who dumps toxic shame onto you. It could be a stranger. It could be someone online who is bullying you, manipulating you, and stalking you. So keep your mind open on who it could be. Next is toxic shame judges the person, meaning you, rather than the act of what someone inflicted upon you. So whether it was the perpetrator, or the narcissist, siblings, etc., they inflicted pain, and yet they're not taking responsibility for it. And we see this over and over and over again, especially in the abuse community. Next is that oftentimes survivors are not consciously even aware if they have toxic shame. Typically, it could be subconscious. You may not even know that you are carrying this today. So this is another normal and common trauma response. This may be something you grew up with. You may have been raised by one or more narcissistic people within your family, or maybe you married or were in an intimate relationship with a narcissist or some form of sociopath, and you discovered that they were so manipulative, they inflicted so much pain on you, they were cruel, they may have cheated on you, had affairs on you, and then turn around and twist everything in which they claim that it's your fault, and then they dump this toxic shame on you. And next, we can understand that when shame becomes toxic, it can eat at you. It can destroy your life. It can destroy you, your mental health, your physical health, your spiritual health, and your entire livelihood. Everyone experiences shame on occasion. You know, there are people who may feel shame, and it could be something that they did that was wrong, that then they basically set the record straight. Maybe they make amends. Maybe they restore a relationship. And that kind of shame is not what I'm talking about today. There's a big difference from regular shame versus toxic shame. So when it comes down to toxic shame, if there's nothing you learn in this video, let it be this. You are not the blame for toxic shame. It is nothing even to do with you, your words, your actions, behaviors, or what happened to you. Instead, it is about other people, very, very malicious, unhealthy, psychologically abusive people who dumped toxic shame on you. Next, when it is severe, so when you have toxic shame and it's in a really severe stage, you can have physical symptoms, you can have emotional distress, you could be in extreme turmoil. Then you may battle strong feelings of shame, which stimulate your nervous system, causing you to have a fight, flight, freeze, or fawn response. You may feel exposed. You may want to run, hide, and conceal your own identity. You may feel angry. You may feel distressed. You may feel confused. You may feel frustrated. And you might actually feel grief and sometimes feel extremely sad. You know, it does not feel good. When someone inflicts pain on us intentionally, they traumatize us, they abuse us in many, many, many different forms. And then they turn around and they say, you deserved it. You asked for it. It's all your fault. And again, you know, this is the gaslighting. This is complete crazy making. It's a smokescreen. And they hide behind this little fake mask and try to act like you deserved it and it's all your fault. No, you're the problem. It's all of us against you, so the problem must be you. You know, again, it's just an excuse, and we must know there is no excuse for abuse, and there is no excuse for toxic shame. So we can actually feel overwhelmed. We can feel confused. Some people with toxic shame can have brain fog, memory loss. They could have a lot of anxiety. They could have hypervigilance, disassociation, triggers, flashbacks, insomnia, chronic pain, and on it goes. So worse, you may feel alienated from others, especially if it was your family. So you could feel alienated from your family. You're ostracized. They're all pointing the finger at you, claiming, well, it's your fault. Well, you deserved it. Oh, you're the problem. And the meanwhile, no, it's really not you. It is them, the narcissist, the abusive siblings, the sneaky spouse who cheated on you over and over and over again, or who has psychologically abused you. It could be the ex-partner and so forth. Next is that when we experience our triggers And these tender spots, they produce feelings of shame. So it could be very, very intense, depending on, of course, who you are, your medical history, your mental health status, your life experiences, cultural beliefs, personality, and the specific traumatic events and abuse that you have experienced. So let's jump into, what are the traits of toxic shame? And again, this is only to build awareness and to educate others. So don't take this as like me pointing the finger at you or saying something negative in regards to you. There is actually no shame in having this whole toxic shame dumped onto you. Meaning, I'll clearly state what I mean. It's not your fault. You didn't deserve it. It's not about you. It's about the person who actually dumped it on you. And the best thing we could do is really get to the nitty gritty on, what are the signs of toxic shame, and then how do we heal it? So isolation is a sign of toxic shame. I've seen it even in my coaching clients. I've seen it in a lot of people who write a lot of comments on my YouTube videos. And there are a lot of people who are the Lone Ranger who really don't want to participate in society because they have deeply, deeply been abused and traumatized, and they experience toxic shame. So for isolation, we can understand that it is linked to unhealthy shame. You may isolate yourself for a long time. Maybe you took off and left the narcissist or the dysfunctional family, or maybe it was your partner who was extremely manipulative and covert and had a lot of very hostile behaviors towards you. So your friends and your family may try to coax you to come out of your shell, to come out of your home, to socialize and interact with them, to attend functions or gatherings, etc., etc. You may feel isolated because you are suffering toxic shame. You may actually feel unsafe. So why do people isolate? Because they don't feel safe. We have to understand that some people, they're not safe. They're in a situation where they are still being stalked. They are still being manipulated. They are still being gaslit. They are still extremely, extremely challenged by these very, very hostile people who are still abusing them, even if it is from a distance. So are you isolating? Good question. Next is that sometimes people who have received this horrible thing of someone negative dumping the toxic shame on them, they might wear a false mask. So if you have toxic shame, one common sign is that you won't feel comfortable being yourself. Well, why? Because you've been ridiculed, you've been ostracized, you've been beat up, you have been scarred by the horrible, horrible, nasty bullying and nasty remarks they make to you, the smear campaigns, the retaliation, the blame shifting, and all the crazy making of destructive relationships. And so you don't feel comfortable being your own self. You may cover up your true identity. The shame of this nature can cause you to feel like you're not accepted by your friends, by your family, by your loved ones. It might be your spouse. It might be a boyfriend, girlfriend. And it could just be in general by society. So you may subconsciously create a more appealing version of yourself to look better by our society because you want to be accepted. Now, the one thing we need to say is this. It's normal to want to be approved, to be validated, to be loved, to be worthy. So please understand that it's okay to be yourself. It's actually more than okay to step into your true identity, your authentic self. Why? Because that's where you shine. Because that's who you are. That's who you were created to be. So don't hide behind a mask. Instead, stay true to you, no matter who you are. And understand, we all have flaws. We all have weaknesses. But we also have strengths and we have wonderful qualities. Tap into your beautiful qualities and strengths. Next. And mental health is another sign of toxic shame. Those who are dealing with this horrible shame being dumped on them by toxic people, they may actually spiral out of control. They may have emotional dysregulation, anxiety, depression, panic attacks. Maybe they have PTSD. They may also end up feeling despair and hopelessness because they feel stuck. So if you are in a relationship in which you feel stuck, maybe you can create a new way to get out and be safe and start your healing journey. Next is silenced. So oftentimes people who were dumped toxic shame were also coerced into being bullied into silence. So it's very, very common. It's almost like this common thread. I hear it every day. So I hear it from my clients. I hear it from my subscribers on YouTube. I go through social media, and even different friends of mine and people who are trauma experts share about this. It's very common that we are censored and silenced. And the main reason I believe that this is a big issue with toxic people is because they silence us because they don't want to be exposed. They want you to think that it's your fault. They want you to have guilt and deep, deep toxic shame, because then they're off the hook and they don't have to take accountability for their actions, words, and behaviors that were very, very lethal. Next is that your toxic shame may be so intensified in such a high degree that you actually feel paralyzed and can't speak the truth. Next is denial. So due to how traumatic toxic shame can be, you may live in denial about your past abuse. It may hurt you so deeply and so badly that you are stuck in a denial stage. Again, this is a trauma response, and so many different people have dealt with it. Next, you may have disturbing memories. You may have nightmares. You may have deep, severe insomnia, flashbacks, these horrible, horrible memories that might show up in your sleep and in your waking state. And you might have negative beliefs about your childhood, about your teen years, and even about your adulthood and different relationships that were really toxic for you. So your disturbing memories can be linked to a shame story about your abuse, trauma, and violent acts that were done to you. And lastly, another sign of toxic shame is you may have these shame-based beliefs. It could be so embedded and enmeshed in your trauma, and it could be subconscious. So what does this mean? If it's subconscious, you may not be consciously even aware that you have shame-based beliefs. You may feel inadequate. You may feel unlovable, unworthy, defective, not good enough. You might feel like a fraud, or that you're just not lovable or important. And again, all of these feelings are valid. These are common traits of toxic shame, signs, and characteristics. In most cases, shame becomes internalized from chronic experiences of shame that was dumped onto you, and it could have been, again, childhood, teen years, adult years, or all of the above. Parents, especially the narcissist, they can transfer the shame from themselves onto you, especially if you were a child. And they can use verbal words and nonverbal behaviors in their effort to take their shame that belonged to them, dump it on you. So you might be the scapegoat or the black sheep of the family. You may have experienced a narcissistic parent or siblings who dump toxic shame onto you. So you might be in a situation where, if it's not resolved, toxic shame can lead to depression, anxiety, complex PTSD, eating disorders, aggression, low self-esteem, irrational guilt. And it's not your guilt, really, honestly, it is not your shame or guilt to carry. You might be feeling like a perfectionist. You always just want everything to be perfect. And again, that is rooted to toxic shame and abuse. You may be in codependent, unhealthy relationships as an adult. And again, it is linked to toxic shame. So how can we heal toxic shame? If you've fallen victim to toxic shame, there is still hope for you and a full recovery. Despite it originating from your childhood trauma and or adult trauma, or both, you can still learn to conquer this self-defeating behavior. So education is number one. So if you want to heal, I'm a huge believer. It begins first with awareness. And sometimes we really need to dig deep. And we need to do a lot of journaling, a lot of writing, a lot of receiving emotional support, whether it is with a trauma-informed therapist, psychologist, clergy, and or a certified trauma recovery coach. Next is that since toxic shame is internalized, so it's in you, it's literally enmeshed in cellular memory. So toxic shame is not just linked to your brain. So when someone experiences trauma, their brain is changed. So there's various parts of the brain that are changed, and you're not the same. You're not the same. And again, it's not about like, oh, what's wrong with you? No, nothing's wrong with you. It's about what happened to you. And what happened to you was you were abused. You were traumatized. And that is why you're having a trauma response to it. But it does impact our brain. And so we have to really start working on our thoughts, our beliefs, the words we speak, what we say, what we silently say to ourselves. It's called the inner critic. The inner critic is something that a lot of trauma experts get into. You could check out different books, especially Pete Walker. He has the book Complex PTSD from Surviving to Thriving. He talks about the inner critic. It's excellent information and super educational to build awareness and to understand that we can learn how to change our brain. We can learn how to change our thoughts. We could take captive our thoughts and start affirming that we are lovable, that we are caring, that we are worthy of being treated with gentleness, nurturing, kindness, and compassion. Next is that if you experienced toxic shame and any form of abuse or trauma, understand that it's rooted to being abandoned. So what happened is perhaps in your childhood or adult years, you were emotionally and or physically abandoned by someone who should have loved you, who should have cared for you, who should have supported you, yet they didn't. And we know that a narcissist, they're very egotistical. They want all eyes on them. They want to be the king or queen who gets all this attention and admiration and praise. They don't want the attention on you. That's why they inflict toxic shame onto you. They want you to feel bad. They want you to feel sad. They want you to feel like it's your fault. And yet it's not your fault. And so we can understand that if you were abandoned, whether in your childhood or adulthood, that part of healing and the trauma recovery does mean that you reconnect to yourself and that you nurture your inner child and that you come home to yourself, that you are there to support your own self, physically, emotionally, and spiritually. So you don't want to keep abandoning yourself. You want to reconnect to yourself. It is just amazing, like with somatic experiencing, with EMDR, with various forms of energy work and holistic modalities. We can change our brain. We can heal ourselves. We could change our subconscious mind and literally affirm positive things about us: abundance, love, healthy relationships, prosperity, peace, healing, etc., and it could become our current reality. And it's all beginning with our mind, our subconscious mind, and then speaking it, living it, and transforming our lives from the inside out. It's a beautiful thing. It is an incredibly beautiful thing. So here is a quote by John Bradshaw. He is the author of Healing the Shame That Binds You. He says, shame is internalized when one is abandoned. Abandonment is the precise term to describe how one loses one's authentic self and ceases to exist psychologically. Being compassionate with yourself is one of the most important things you can do to try to let go of these unhealthy emotions, such as the toxic shame, the blame, and the whole nastiness that the people try to dump on you. So we have to remember that though we are imperfect human beings, we have a lot of wonderful traits, qualities. And so that's what we want to focus on. We want to focus on the good. We want to focus on what's uplifting, what's loving, what's kind, what brings you joy, what brings you peace. This changes our lives, and it can produce much healthier thoughts, especially in our subconscious mind, in which that will change our entire conscious reality. Next is that understand you are enough. You are enough. Many of us who are healing from toxic shame were victimized, we were traumatized, and we felt like we were never enough, that our lives just were not important, that we had no credibility, that we were unlovable. And again, that is hogwash. It is false. And we must understand that healing means we will be gentle with ourselves. It's okay to cut ourselves a little bit of slack. And it's really, really important that in an active way, we can start doing this by using positive words, thoughts, beliefs, affirming, really uplifting, positive, kind words about ourselves. So you can say every day, you can have, like, whether you want to call it your mantra, your affirmation, your manifestation, whatever you choose to call it, you could say, I am worthy right now. I am unconditionally and divinely loved now. My life has value and incredible importance right now. And it is so. It is guaranteed. And so we must know that healing does begin within. The ability to heal starts in our subconscious mind. If you think that you cannot recover, and if you have these really negative mindsets, and it could be deeply, deeply enmeshed in the inner critic and the abuse and trauma from a long time ago, you may think that you won't recover. You may tell yourself you can't heal. We have to understand, if you tell yourself over and over and over that you cannot heal, you are sending a message to your subconscious mind, and your subconscious mind will bring it into reality. That means you won't heal. Therefore, we must speak life, love, kindness, harmony, unity, and we must just literally wash ourselves with compassion and empathy, positivity. There is so much power in our mind, especially our subconscious mind. And so today, really begin focusing on how you speak about yourself and try to shift the way you speak. And when you start doing this, you will receive blessings. Miracles will unfold. You will start feeling better about yourself. And one by one, you will start healing from toxic shame and trauma. So share with me today, have you experienced toxic shame? If so, who was the perpetrator who dumped it on you? And next, what are you doing to heal yourself? How are you receiving emotional support? I really, really believe emotional support is crucial to heal trauma and abusive relationships. And so I'm going to end again, my announcement again. Today is the day, my friends, to receive emotional support. As a certified trauma recovery coach, I am offering this amazing sale where you are going to receive emotional support from me. We're going to unpack your trauma in a safe space. You get voice, you get choice, and you are in the driver's seat of how you choose to heal. And understand you're worthy of it. You are worthy of it. So check out this awesome deal that I'm having before it ends on October 29th. Share with me about your toxic shame, who dumped it on you, and how you are doing. And I send each of you love, light, and healing. And you can visit me at danaarcuri.com. Thank you and have a blessed day.